Welcome back to the Chronicles of the King. I'm Megan.
And I'm Tessa. We're two devoted Elvis fans on a mission to explore his life, music, and legacy through thoughtful research and honest conversation.
Every episode, we dig into the stories behind the songs, the moments behind the myths, and the people and places that shaped Elvis Presley into the artist the world fell in love with.
So, whether you've been an Elvis fan your whole life or you're just starting your journey into his world, we're so glad you're here with us.
So settle in and follow along for a podcast that's TCB with TLC.
Hi, guys. So today we have a very exciting episode for you. We're both really jazzed about this. So, our special guest today is the one and only Larry Geller. So Larry Geller was Elvis's hairstylist, confidant, spiritual advisor, and most importantly, his friend. He has three books. So one is coming out very soon, or by the time this is posted, might already be out. So
Yep.
he has his book, If I Could Dream, Elvis's Own Story, which I have right here.
Mhm.
This is one of the essential reads for any
Absolutely.
Elvis fan, I think. We have another book called Leaves of Elvis's Garden, the song of his soul. And his newest book has just come out. It is called Unchained Melody. And we're just so excited to get the chance to talk with him today.
Yep. And so we're going to hear a lot about Larry's story, the interactions he had with Elvis, and it's a great conversation all about the emotions and being in the world of Elvis. So we hope you guys enjoy.
So I grew up essentially after we moved from New York. I was a little boy. I grew up in Southern California, the Hollywood area. And then when I was a teenager in high school, it was 1956, and everything changed. All of a sudden, we had music, we had rock and roll, we had Elvis, who changed everything. He changed he changed music, he changed style, and I became a major fan. I knew all the songs and all the lyrics, and I was just enamored with Elvis, like most of my friends. So one day in 1957, we heard that Elvis is coming to town for a rock concert. And you know what? We didn't know what that even meant because it didn't exist, because there was no one on a national scale to give a rock concert, but it was Elvis. So this was so big because when he came on the scene, it was gold record after gold record. He's 21 years old. He's starring in his own movie. So here he is, then the king of rock and roll and a movie star. So he came to town at a place called the Pan Pacific Auditorium. And me and my friends went. And we saw thousands of kids coming in from all directions. It was electric. We never saw anything like this before. And we were very naive to the point where we didn't even have tickets. We didn't even realize you had to have a ticket. We just went to see Elvis because he was going to be there. So before we knew it, most of the people are in the auditorium. And we knew this building because this was the home to like the auto show and the ice capades. And we used to go there often. So we knew the building. So my buddies and I walked way to the other side and we tried to yank open doors, but it was tight. And then we finally walked to the way to the other side of the building. And I said to my friends, I said, look, you guys, there he is. There's Elvis. And Elvis is about 20 yards away, leaning against the car with his arms folded like this, with a bunch of guys in front of him, the bodyguards. I said, come on, let's go meet him. Let's meet him. And when I looked at my friends, I realized they were petrified. They didn't move. And I said, well, I'm going, you guys. And I ran up to Elvis. And I stood right in front of him. He turned and looked at me, and I'm looking at the sideburns and the hair and the in person, Elvis was so dynamic, and he saw that I was nervous. And he smiled. He said, "Hi, I'm Elvis Presley." And I said, "Hi, Elvis. It's so great to meet you. My name's Larry Geller. Man, I'm..." And the minute I said that, one of the guys with Elvis said, "Elvis, you're on, man, now. Now, come on. You're on. Let's go. Let's go." And Elvis just very casually said, "Hey, you heard what they said? Gotta go, kid. Talk to you some other time." And he walked off. And I stood there. I was in the Elvis zone. I couldn't believe what just happened. I met Elvis Presley. He shook my hand. He spoke to me. So as a teenager, in that time, that was a major thing to happen.
Mhm.
People walked up to me, started shaking my hand, and I'll never forget that moment. So I
Mhm.
graduate a few months later, I graduate high school. I enter college, LACC, and I only took 2 units, meaning I went twice a week for an hour each time. I was floundering. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And my best buddy, Christian, said to me one day, "Larry, what are you going to do with your life? You're fooling yourself. You're going 2 days a week to college. That's nothing. I go every day. What do
Mm.
you want to become?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know." You know, my dad was in show business. I love to be in that. And I'm reading a lot of books. He said, "Well, listen, you're very artistic. You need something to fall back on to make money to support yourself. Why don't you think of becoming a hairstylist? You get a job right here in Beverly Hills. You meet girls, you make some money," and
Mhm.
it sounded right. I dropped out of college, entered a cosmetology college, and went through the course. And I took the state board exam. I'm waiting for the results. And one afternoon, I went for a walk, and I see a building with a door with a big stained glass window with a weird symbol. And I never saw anything like that. And I was curious. So I walked in, and I didn't know when I walked in if it was a barber shop or a beauty salon. And it was a guy standing on a little ladder hanging plants up, and jazz was playing in the background. And he introduced himself, and his name was Jay Sebring. I don't know if you guys, do you know the name? Okay.
I do, yeah.
Okay. And so we started talking. I told him about myself. He said, "Larry, let me tell you something. I'm opening this very week the very first men's hair styling salon in America. We're going to be innovators. This has never been done before. We're going to shampoo the men's hair before we even cut it. And then we're going to blow dry it, and we're going to design the hair. And this is going to be the coming thing. We're going to be pioneers. Don't take that job in Beverly Hills. Join forces with me." And I did. It just seemed so right. And to make a long story short, uh, we opened our doors, and within a matter of the next several months, we became the hottest place in Hollywood. Our clientele: Sinatra, Marlon Brando, Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, Rock Hudson, every major
Mhm.
star in Hollywood and TV, James Garner, and just everyone, Milton Berle, Mickey Rooney. I mean, everyone
Mhm.
came to us. And I was doing Peter Sellers' hair, Roy Orbison, Glenn Campbell, a lot of very interesting, great
Mhm.
guys. And a couple of years went by, and we hired a bunch of new stylists, and we were it. And all the movies of that era came from our style. So one afternoon, 1964, I'm well established. I'm 24 years old at this time. And one afternoon, my phone rang, and I picked it up at the salon. And there was a southern drawl. And the guy says, Larry, my name is Alan Fortis, and I'm sitting here with Elvis Presley. When I heard that name, I thought, what?
Mhm.
And he wants to know if you'd like to come up to the house here in Bel Air, which is next to Beverly Hills,
Mhm.
and fix his hair. And I thought, oh my God. Because at that time, even like the great Henry Fonda knew me by my first name. I knew everyone. But Elvis was the celebrity of celebrities.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
was it. So they gave me directions of where to go. I packed my bag. I'm starting to walk off the salon, and the receptionist says, Larry, Peter Sellers is on the phone. He wants you right now. I said, you tell Peter I'll call him later. I didn't care if it was
Mhm.
Moses or a senator. This is Elvis. This is something
Right.
else,
Mhm.
right? I was so excited. I drove up to the eastern Bel Air gates, and someone met me that worked for Elvis. His name was Jimmy Kingsley. And this is 1960. This is April of 64.
Mhm.
And we drive up the winding road, and we go to a street called Perugia Way. And I knew which house it was because there were tons of people in the front of all ages. So I knew right away. As we're talking right now, and I'm
Mhm.
telling you about these people there,
Yeah.
they're there right now as we're talking at Graceland. It
Mhm.
hasn't stopped.
Yeah. Mhm.
True.
I'd be there right now if I could.
I was just
Yeah,
thinking
there
that
you
when you
go.
said that
It's,
about all the
it's,
people in front, that it's
yeah,
like you can always
Mm.
tell, like when you're, the first time I pulled up, I was like, oh, everybody knows Elvis. It's not just me. Like,
Yeah.
right.
kind of a,
Wherever he was, there was people. They found out. They knew where he was.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I walk into the house, and I turn my head, and there's like it's a beautiful house it was a single story overlooking the Bel Air Country Club. And so I turned and looked in the kitchen, like a breakfast nook, and there was a bunch of guys sitting with Elvis at a table. And Elvis says, be right with you, man. Jimmy takes me in the other room, the living room, then into the den, and I'm looking around, checking everything out, seeing Elvis's house.
Mhm.
And about a minute later, here comes Elvis. The guy's behind him, that same inner glow and beauty. Now I've grown up, and we're standing toe to toe, eyeball to eyeball. He says, hi, I'm Elvis Presley. And I'm having a flashback. Hi,
Right.
Elvis. I said, hi, Elvis.
Mm.
My name's Larry Geller. It's great to meet you. He said, well, come on, let's go to my bathroom. You fix my hair, we'll
Mhm.
talk. I said, okay. He says, all right, you guys, I'll see you later. So Elvis and I go into his bathroom, and I expected to see like a beautiful salon chair and light bulbs around, typical. But no, it was a large, beautiful, clean bathroom, but it was plain. It was a little basin. And it was just, come on, we'll do it right here. And he put his head down, put a towel on, and put my shampoo, and I'm rinsing it, being so careful. And I'm almost through rinsing out the lather. And Elvis picks his head up and starts shaking, and water
Oh.
splattering all over me. And he's drenched, and he starts to laugh. He goes, oh, man, Larry, what the hell, man? At least it's clean. And the minute he said that, it's like I knew who he was. I'm telling you, there are some celebrities that want you to know who they are. They've got this iron cast, this ego, this.
Mhm.
Elvis was like a guy, one of the guys, transparent, and it was beautiful for me because it helped put me a little bit at ease, a little, because I'm very,
Yeah.
so we sit down in front of this large mirror, marble top, and I says, Larry, I'm right in the middle of this movie called Roustabout with Barbara Stanwyck as my co-star. And you can't cut too much off, these scenes got to match. I said, Elvis, believe me, I know. Just leave it to me. He's okay. I'm leaving it all to you then. And I start to do his hair. And not a word was spoken for the next 30, 35, 40 minutes. And if he wanted to talk, I'm available, but I was respectful of his space. And I'm also concentrating on my
Yeah.
craft.
Mhm.
Right.
And he had a gorgeous head of hair. Perfect, perfect. So I do his hair, blow dry it, spray it. And I'm looking at him in the mirror. Elvis, what do you think? He says, beautiful, beautiful. And he spins it around. And now it begins. He puts his finger right like this. Who are you, Larry? Come on, man. What are you really all about? What are you really into? Just like that. And I gotta tell you, I was almost in shock. And I can remember my very first thoughts. I'm in Elvis Presley's bathroom and he's asking me, what is going on?
Mhm.
This is crazy.
Mhm.
I said, well, Elvis, you know what I do for a living? And I love my work, and I go to the studio sometimes. And I told him a few of the people that I'm working with, here, like Roy Orbison. And I said, but I hear what you're asking me. And I'm going to tell you the truth. What's more important to me than anything in life is my search for the purpose of life, for the truth of why we're here. I want to know about our souls. I want to know what happens to us when we die. Why does this work? Why does the universe exist, Elvis? Why how did it happen? Why isn't there nothing? I have so many questions, Elvis. So I read books, whatever I get my hands on, religious books, spiritual books, metaphysical books, philosophy, Eastern, Western, ancient, modern, I don't care. And I became a vegetarian and I meditate every day and I pray. And I started to get very, very self-conscious because I started to reveal myself to Elvis. Because this is 1964, you guys. So I told Elvis, I read all these books. I know who you are. You're Elvis Presley. You're the biggest star in the world. And I'm sure this sounds corny to you. And he said, Larry, this is what I think about every night when I go to sleep. I want to hear more of what you have to tell me. He says, these guys out there that work for me, they're good guys. They take care of me. They all have jobs to take care of me in certain ways, but they're not interested in stuff like this. So just keep talking. He says, I'm going to tell you something. I've always wondered, why me? Why me? And he goes like this. And he says, why was I plucked out of all the millions of lives to become Elvis Presley? Why? Larry, do you know that I have a twin brother? I said, yeah, I know. I've read about that. And I have twin sisters, and they're big fans of yours, and they told me all about your twin brother. He said, Larry, he was stillborn. Why did I make it, not him? And what would have happened if he would have made it? Would you be doing Jesse
Right.
Garen's hair right now? That was his name. What if both of us would have made it? Would we be known as the Presley brothers? Larry, I have so many questions about life. And so we started really opening up to one another. When I said, Peter Sellers waiting for me, he automatically started to imitate Peter Sellers.
Mhm.
And I was really like him and saw all of his movies. At any rate, I said, Larry, I've got a better idea. You go back right now and you tell Jay Sebring that you're going to give him your clientele because you're going to be working for Elvis Presley full time. What do you think? I didn't, I didn't have to think. I mean, but the journey, what I'm telling you guys now
Mhm.
is just going to start to take off. Now that you know how we met and all of this,
Mhm.
Larry, you meet me at Paramount Studios tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. Your name will be at the gate and bring me some of those books. So what he was really asking me was two things. One, if you say yes and you take this position upon yourself, you're going to become responsible for the hair, for the likeness and image
Yeah.
of Elvis Presley in movies and
Mhm.
graphics and personal, such a major
Yeah.
responsibility. But he was asking me something even more significant to me.
Mhm.
And that was this conversation is where I'm at, Larry. I'm
Yeah.
growing as a person. I need to study. I need to learn more.
Mhm.
I want to know more about the things that you've been into. So this became
Mhm.
a relationship right there on the
Yeah.
spot. And the next morning, I go to Paramount Studios and Elvis comes in. We have a great day. I'm doing this there. I meet the guys. And so the day is over and we're time to leave. We walk outside where our cars are parked. And Elvis's Rolls Royce was there, beautiful. And my little blue Volkswagen convertible. And Elvis said, "You ever drive a Rolls Royce before?" I said, "No." He takes his keys out. "Take my car tonight. You bring it back tomorrow. Take your wife tonight. Go for a drive." And I said, "No, Elvis, no, man, I don't think so."
Mhm.
I, I didn't want to do it. But at any rate, I brought him a stack of books.
Mhm.
And over the years, we built a library that I found at certain places, because that's what my thing is.
Mhm.
A library that was phenomenal. In fact, in the 70s, when ever Elvis went on tour, which was every several weeks out of a month,
Mhm.
two huge trunks filled with his favorite books. The guys had to carry them
Mhm.
and schlepp them, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they hated doing it because that's heavy, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, um, the last August 16th, 1977, a few hours
Mhm.
before Elvis passed away, I gave him the very last book I ever gave him, and he died reading the book. His body was found on the floor
Mhm.
in a fetal position reading this book. And I made 10 movies with Elvis. Roustabout,
Mhm.
Girl Happy, Double Trouble, Easy Come, Easy Go, Paradise Wine Style, Clam Bake, Frankie and Johnny, Harem Scarum, Clam Bake.
Mhm.
I'm probably missing a few, but you know the
Yeah.
moves, you know.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. And everyone knows, we all know Elvis,
Mhm.
the entertainer, the jumpsuits, the beauty, the magnificence, the voice, the career. My book that's going to be out in about 2 weeks, by the way,
Mhm.
is called Unchained Melody. And there's a picture of Elvis and myself that was taken when we were making Spin Out. What
Mhm.
is the book all about? It's about what Elvis says on the cover of the book. The world knows Elvis Presley, but they
Mhm.
don't know me, he said.
Yeah.
And he said this many times, and there was a lot to that. So that's what my role was in his life, and that's what
Mhm.
LarryGeller.com. Thank God I got that domain. Uh,
Mhm.
that's my website. And in about 2 weeks, it will be in
Mhm.
hardback and softback and,
Yeah.
Kindle and Nook and all that.
Awesome.
And hopefully, we're working on it, an audio book that, Larry, me, will,
Mhm.
narrate, and someone, a major ETA is Elvis's voice
Awesome.
in many, many
Wow.
conversations. So, any rate, now, a
Mhm.
year later, it's 1965, August 1965.
Mhm.
You might even know where I'm going with this if you August 27th was the
Mhm.
night the Beatles came to meet Elvis.
Mhm.
When they came on the scene, they come to America, that's the first thing they wanted to do. They wanted to get to meet
Mhm.
Elvis, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they tried a couple times. Their manager, Brian Epstein, got in touch with Colonel Parker, and Elvis said, "No, I'm not ready yet. No, no, no."
Well, I just read something because we did a little post about Elvis and the Beatles, and I just read something that said that they had asked Elvis to come to the UK a bunch of times, but that he had been like, "I'm not going to see them. Like they have to come see me." I don't know how true that is, but
No, no, he would have done that, but he
okay.
wanted to go to the
Okay.
UK.
Right.
He
Mhm.
wanted
Yeah.
to
Right.
desperately. In fact, in
Mhm.
my book, there's a lot of incidences where he was so
Mhm.
frustrated. He said, "The Beatles come here, the Stones come here, Jerry and the
Mhm.
Pain." He knew the groups.
Mhm.
They all come here, everyone. Even our groups go there. What about
Right.
Yeah.
me? What about me?
True.
What my
Mhm.
fans, what must they think?
Right.
Are they gonna,
Mhm.
do they think it's because of me that I'm not going? They won't let me
Yeah.
out. The colonel won't, which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
Why
That's a
the
whole other
Yeah.
That's a whole
thing.
other thing.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Elvis finally reneged, and he said, "All right, yeah,
Mhm.
let him come over." So we came back from Hawaii. We made Paradise Hawaiian Style,
Mhm.
and it was at the end of the movie. And that Friday night, it was a balmy Southern California night, beautiful, warm. Outside of Elvis's house, I can't tell you how many people were there because the word was leaked,
Mhm.
purposely
Yeah.
leaked. I know thousands of people. I kept thinking, all the neighbors, they must be so pissed off. I mean,
Mhm.
so the media was there and police officers, people were climbing trees, and Colonel Parker told
Mhm.
us, because in the house, all the guys were all there. Colonel Parker said, no matter what, no pictures are to be taken, no photos,
Mhm.
none, which was crazy. He was a control freak
Really?
anyway,
Yeah.
and he had his own reasons, which were
Mhm.
wrong. It was wrong. Just for
Mhm.
you and me, for the world, history.
Yeah.
Right.
Be some great, great pictures. Any rate,
Mhm.
so they're in the house, and Elvis and I go into the bathroom. Every day, whether at MGM or Paramount or Graceland upstairs,
Mhm.
and I'm doing it because I did Elvis is there every day, and we go by ourselves for a minimum of an hour, sometimes two.
Mhm.
In the studio, in Elvis's dressing room, we would go there 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day because moving around, his hair would fall, and it had to match and all that.
Mhm.
Whenever we sat, all we did was talk and yak about everything under the
Mhm.
sun. You couldn't shut this man up. He loved to talk.
Yeah.
And we talk about
Mhm.
anything. We talk about the Bible. We talk about girls,
Mhm.
current events, the assassination of Ken, whatever. But that night, he wore this beautiful Bolero blue shirt. And I could see he was so emotional within himself. And when he's emotional, it just made him that much more dynamic and beautiful.
Mhm.
And I've been with in their prime, the most handsome men in Hollywood. Paul Newman in his prime,
Yeah.
Warren Beatty, and all these guys, Rock
Mhm.
Hudson. Oh my God. You
Yeah.
know what? Anyone who ever met Elvis Presley in person will
Mhm.
tell you the same thing. He was a notch above the rest.
Yeah.
In person,
Mhm.
it was so real. It was magnificent. It's like he stepped out of the Bible or Greek mythology,
Mhm.
and he was living and it was happening. And that
Mhm.
night, he was just on fire, on fire. But he didn't say a word. I'm doing his hair. I got to get his hair ready. He had a beautiful head of hair, but it lacked a little bit of body. So I did my tricks and stuff and spray and organic shampoo, which no one knew about then.
Right.
Um, so all of a sudden, Elvis goes, "Man, I know where those guys are at. I respect them. I like their music. I've been there and I've done it. What the hell am I doing with my life?" And he cussed a little bit now and then. I'm sure you know
Mhm.
this.
Of
And he
course.
says, "Son of a bitch, man. These guys are coming to meet Elvis Presley. They know the movies I'm making. They know they're fluffy,
Mhm.
teeny bopper. They don't mean crap. It's the same movie. It's the same
Mhm.
movie. All they do is change my name and the sets. It's the same
Mhm.
story. The same
Yeah.
story. What have I done? What have I done?
Mhm.
I keep telling Colonel Parker, get me into a real movie. I'm an actor. I am an
Mhm.
actor. I'll prove it to the world. I can do great things. This is who I am. How did I get out of high school? Elvis said. I said, sit there and just
Yeah.
trip all the time and visualize myself on the silver screen. And I used to
Mhm.
visualize myself as Tony Curtis and these guys, but I could do this. I can do what Brando did and Dean and Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole. And here,
Mhm.
Hal Wallace, one of the great producers in history, and a lot of filmographers and people in the business will say the greatest movie ever made was Casablanca with
Mhm.
That was a Hal Wallace movie back in
Yeah.
1941. He made
Mhm.
great movies. Elvis said
Absolutely.
he look all the movies he made on me, and I make him money so he can turn around and make a great art film. Why doesn't
Yeah.
he put me
Yeah.
in? I keep telling the colonel, get me a real role, Colonel. And
Mhm.
the colonel kept telling me, all right, we're working on it, Elvis, we're working on it. I don't believe him anymore. I don't even know if he believes in me. Because this guy, all he's doing is following
Mhm.
the almighty dollar. He said,
Yeah.
look, all these studios that I work for and make movies, they all make millions and millions of dollars. People who I don't even know are making it. And then what they do, they package me. They put out an album, and I do some songs that I would never pick myself, but I do
Mhm.
it. And RCA makes millions and millions of dollars. And don't get me wrong, he said, I'm making money, of course, but I'm not into this just for the money. I'm an artist. I have a potential. I have a destiny. I'm here to
Mhm.
help people, to make people happy, to move them, to lift them up. I got to do something, Larry. I got to do something, man. And in the truth, I'm embarrassed to go out there and meet these guys. I can imagine what they must be thinking. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm so glad he's venting because I didn't want him to go out
Mhm.
that night with all that in him like that. At least he got it out, and that helps for all of us.
Yep.
Helps me in my life. Once I
Mhm.
vent, once we all vent, we can chill a bit.
Yep.
So he said, okay, let's go, man. Let's go out there. Let's meet these guys. So about 15 minutes later, we heard screaming. We knew they came in. Brian Epstein in front, and the four Beatles, a couple of their guys. Everyone introduces hi, I'm George, Paul, Elvis. Hi, 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 hi,
Mhm.
hi. Elvis sits in a chair. Everyone sits in the couch in the chair. John, Paul, Ringo, and George. They sit at Elvis's feet on the floor
Mhm.
in a semicircle, cross-legged, like this.
Hmm.
Stone cold, gazing at Elvis. They never saw anything like this before. They saw the movie. We see everyone saw the movies and the videos and
Mhm.
the pictures. This is happening.
Right.
They can't
Mhm.
believe their eyes.
Mhm.
Yep.
This silence went on. Just then, that's a long time.
Mhm.
3 or
Yeah.
4 seconds, went on for
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
15 seconds, and everyone in the room got a little nervous. And there was a big silence in the room. And Elvis said, you guys don't want to talk to me. I'm going to my bedroom. And
Yeah.
everyone laughed.
Yeah.
Elvis broke the ice. Only Elvis could do that. And
Mhm.
so John and Paul, they were so beautiful. Elvis, man, you're the man. You're the man. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here. There'd be no Beatles. There'll be no Stones. None of us. You did it, man. You did it. I picked up a guitar. Everyone picked up the guitars because of you.
Mhm.
Do you know what you
Mhm.
have done, Elvis? Do you know what you've done for us? And they went on, and Elvis, of course, he liked hearing it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause Elvis had a humility about him that was so beautiful. It was sincere.
Mhm.
And so the night wore on.
Mhm.
Colonel and Brian Epstein went in the other room and talked shop. And most of our guys with George and Ringo went into the living room. We had a pool table and they started playing pool. And
Mhm.
it left Elvis, John, Paul, myself, and 2 other guys in the den. And all Elvis'
Mhm.
guitars were on stands. And John said, Elvis, can I pick up the guitar? And Elvis said, yeah, man. So John picks up a guitar, starts strumming song Memphis.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And there was 1 or 2, what do you call it? Paul McCartney he didn't play a
Oh,
regular.
the bass guitar.
Yeah, he picked it
Mhm.
up. Elvis picked his Martin up, and they started strumming together. I couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the vastness of infinity of the space-time continuum, this is a better place to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
this is
Mhm.
it. This who this not only is there not photos, but
Right.
this is not being recorded.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have
Right.
devices in those days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because all we had was 8-track cartridges. So they all played and they sang a few Johnny B. Good. It was
Mhm.
extraordinary. And this is part one of where I'm going to take you of what happened
Mhm.
because of this night.
Yeah.
So at the end of the night, there's all saying goodbye, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I want to show you guys something." So
Mhm.
he takes them back to a hall, and at the end of the hall is Elvis's bedroom. But in the hall, Elvis showed them a sauna, a beautiful wooden sauna. He said, the Colonel gave this me as a gift for making this movie, Paradise Hawaiian style. Take a look. And Paul walked up to the sauna, and it was wooden. It's all wooden, but there was a window, glass, and he looked. He said, "Who's that?" We opened the door, and there was this girl about 16 years old under this wooden seat. She had long blonde hair. She jumped up and started screaming, jumps on Elvis, and Elvis is holding her, and somebody pry her off. And how did she get in the house? It's impossible.
Yeah.
With all the police,
Right.
we never figured it out, but it
That's
was a moment.
yeah.
Oh
It's like
my.
Oh,
the girls
Mm.
mailing themselves to him,
Yeah.
like themselves in the mail. Like,
Mm.
especially on that night, fair enough. They wanted to see the
Fair enough.
Right.
Beatles.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
There's a way. Exactly.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yep.
So in those days, Elvis would not fly unless he absolutely had to. Like when we flew to Hawaii,
Mhm.
it's the only way to, he's not going to go on a
Mhm.
boat. So
Mhm.
we made 3 movies a year.
Mhm.
Go to Hollywood for 3 months, go right back to Memphis for 3 months. This would go on for years.
Mhm.
And the movie was over, saw the Beatles. We got into Elvis's Dodge mobile home that he drove only at night. I would always sit shotgun next to him, a couple of guys in the cab, and about 2 or 3 other vehicles with all of Elvis's wardrobe and other stuff. And our caravan would go, in fact, where I'm sitting right now, and I'm looking out my window because I'm in northern Arizona, and right up the road is Flagstaff, which was Route
Mhm.
66 that we used to travel on. And we were in Arizona. It was about 1:30, 2 in the morning, pitch black.
Mhm.
And Elvis had the cartridge, the 8-track of the best of Roy Orbison, and he loved his Roy's voice. Who doesn't?
Right.
And so
Right.
he put it on, and Roy starts singing and singing, and then the song "Only the Lonely" came on,
Mhm.
and halfway through it,
Mm.
all of a sudden Elvis chimes in and sings the rest of it with Roy, and we're in the cab like, oh my God, what? The
Mhm.
world will never hear this. They'll never hear it. Unless it's
Mhm.
recreated someday. It could be
Yeah.
recreated with those,
Yeah, you never
but
know.
yeah, you never know.
Mhm.
It was beautiful. So the song's over. Elvis turns down the volume and he looks, Lawrence, I got it, man. I got it. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a gospel album. And I'm going to pick every song myself, not RCA. They can put it out, but this is my album. This is coming from me. The Colonel, stand back and just watch it happen. I'll make you money, but let me do what I do. And over the next 6, 8 months, Elvis had a real full-on supply of the oldest gospel on the old 78s from the
Mhm.
1940s and 50s. And when we were in Memphis, we go every afternoon and Elvis would put it on the record player, and we would listen to all these old great gospel jubilee music. And Elvis selected every song on it. About 19, about 8 months later, 64, we drove to Nashville, a couple hours away from Memphis. And because he's going to record at RCA Victor, they were in Nashville. So we go to the motel. We're in Elvis's suite, getting ready to go to the studio only at night. Elvis only record at night. And Elvis says, listen, you guys, you all go down to the cars. I'll be down in a little bit. Larry and I, we need to talk about something. Go on. So they go down. Elvis said, listen, I might tell you something. This is gospel music. This is God's music. This is not rock and roll. It's not love songs. It's not, this music is not the music that comes from the movies. No way. This is special. And we don't know who's going to hear it. And you know as well as I do, God works in mysterious ways. And I'll tell you, if one person gets moved and touches them, and if I could help one person from this album, then I've done my job. So what I'm getting at is, I am not using this voice until my ego is out of the way. Not until I hear that still small voice within me. And I'll know. I got to get clear here. Turn the lights down, Larry. Let's say a prayer. Let's meditate. And that's what we did. We said a little prayer and we meditated. It was silence for about 12, 13 minutes. And all of a sudden I heard Elvis say, all right, I'm ready. Let's hit it. And we went to the studio, and that's how great the art was born.
Mm.
That's where Elvis won his Emmy.
Yeah.
And I am
Mhm.
telling you guys, from my vantage point, the Beatles meeting the Beatles flashed them too in their own way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in his way, he had to do something. They wouldn't.
Mhm.
We were going to go back to Hollywood to make another movie after we went to Memphis, another one of those movies.
Right.
And
Mhm.
thank God he made them. Oh my God, they're
Right.
classics. They're
Yeah.
great, great. But he
Right.
he wanted to go into something profound
Mhm.
as a real actor, which he
Mhm.
should have, which he was planning on at the very end of his life, which I'll tell you later.
Mhm.
But the story didn't end. 10 years later. Wow. We're on tour.
Mhm. Mhm.
We were in southern Florida. We were outside of Miami in a place called Hollywood, Florida. And we get out of the vehicles, and the bodyguards take Elvis immediately up to the penthouse and get him secure. And we all get out with our baggage, and there were thousands of people screaming, and and everywhere we went, there was always a cadre, a group of these fans, and I recognized the same faces that would get to where we're going
Mhm.
before we even got there. So I'm walking in, and some girl says,
Mhm.
"Hi, Larry. Hi, hi," And I looked at her, and I didn't recognize her, but she had Elvis, boom, 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 on her hat, boom, Elvis patches and
Mhm.
buttons on her jeans covered.
Mhm.
I said, "Hi." I go to my room, unpack. And I know Elvis is waiting for me. So I go downstairs to get some food in the restaurant to check it out. And all the fans were kind of like roped off there when I went down, and I see her, and I motioned for her to come. So they opened and she came, and I invited her to sit with me. And it turns out her name was Darlene, a lovely person. And she was so excited to talk to me. And I said, Darlene, look, I want to know why you're covered with Elvis. I mean, you got a lot of Elvis on you.
Yeah.
And why? And she proceeded to tell me she was about 8 or 9 years old, and she fell down a flight of stairs, and her spine broke in several places, and one of her legs got completely crushed. And over the next 7, 8, 9 years, all she knew was being in a hospital many, many times, many, many surgeries, shots, pills, drugs, doctors, pain, no life, no friends, no. And she said, look, Larry, look at me. You can see by looking at me, I'm not going to ever have a boyfriend or a husband or children. And she had the most beautiful face. Oh, big, big blue eyes, angelic. From the waist down, it was obvious she was challenged. So I told her, oh. So she said to me, Larry, I got to a place in my life. I was growing up. I was going to be 20 years old, and I didn't want to live anymore. It was, why? I'm not going to have anything but pain. I even wrote a note to my parents. I had all the pills anyone could get their hands on, free. They're on my desk. The water was there in a glass, and the radio is on, and all of a sudden I hear Elvis Presley singing How Great Thou Art. Larry, I don't know what happened to me. All I know the next moment, I'm on the floor shaking and crying and crying and crying. I don't know how long I was there. I was just filled with something. I don't even know. And I felt Elvis. I felt love. I saw God wanted me to live for Elvis. For Elvis. It's because of Elvis. I have to take care of him. I have to be where he is. I have to pray for him. I was really moved, you know. And I told her what Elvis said, if one person. And I said, listen, Darlene,
Mm.
your story is remarkable, and I really like you. But I know that Elvis is waiting for me, so I have to go. But I'm going to tell him about our conversation. And she said, what? You're going to tell Elvis about me? I said, oh, you bet I am.
Mm.
So I walk upstairs, and I walked into Elvis's room. And I could, as I'm telling you this, I can see Elvis with his blue robe with a hood on
Mm.
at the windows, at the drapes, looking all the way down to where fans were. And they didn't know he was looking at them. And he's looking, but he's looking. I said, Elvis, I got to tell you something. He turns around. I told him. He went, oh man, oh man. And tears, literal tears. Larry, you have no idea how I needed to hear that, man. I needed it. I needed it. I needed it. But Elvis's life was glorious, glorious. But if you flip the coin over, there's a whole other aspect to Elvis. He went through a lot at the end of his life, a lot of pain physically. He had a lot of ailments from glaucoma to a spastic colon to other things. We know it has started off with medications that expanded. He knew a book was coming out by 3 former bodyguards, and he knew they were going to exaggerate and lie. He knew they couldn't write, that they were going to spill their guts to some writer. And that's why when I wrote my book, Unchained Melody, I wrote it myself with my wife, who's the editor. Great, great editor. She's magnificent. But I want this to be pure, no exaggeration, only what I saw. And you can draw your own conclusion. But Elvis is going through a betrayal. He supported their families for over 20 years. And they get turned around to write a book. It was killing and eating away at him. So he was going through a lot. So he loved hearing that story because, well, for a lot of reasons.
Mm.
But I want to tell you another story before we end this. I think I think we've been on for an hour. Can
We
we
got
go?
the time in the world. We got all the time in the
Can we
world.
go a
We all
little?
the time. Yes.
Absolutely.
All
We have a
right.
couple of questions
And
too
I'm
for
saying,
you. So go right ahead.
I want to tell
Mhm.
you this story
Mhm.
because it's very personal to me, because about 6 years ago, somewhere in there, right before COVID, this very, very famous record producer who worked with Sinatra, Michael Jackson, everyone. And he wrote a big article that came out. And in the article, he called Elvis a racist, which is absurd.
Mm.
One day, back in the 60s, I don't remember what year, 64, 67, I don't know. We're in Memphis waiting to go back to Hollywood. And every day, literally, hundreds of letters would come into Graceland from the post office, and they were addressed to Elvis Presley with his address, or just Elvis Presley, or just Elvis, or just Graceland. The post office, they knew. I mean, this is
Mhm.
so they brought him over every day. So Elvis and I were downstairs at Graceland. We walked outside where his father Vernon had the office, and the two secretaries, Becky Yancey and Patsy Presley. We walked in and we're kibitzing and talking and laughing, goofing, and it was stacks of these of fan letters for the day. So Elvis and I had to go back upstairs so I could do Elvis's hair because like every night at midnight we go to the Memphian Theater and see the latest movies.
Mhm.
So Elvis grabbed a stack because he always wanted to keep in touch with fans and everything and read and see what's going on. That was his way of being in touch. So we went up into our room. It was upstairs of Graceland, Elvis's bedroom. Then this is the office. And then our room where with shampoo bowl and all that. And later there's a conference room that turned into Lisa Marie's bedroom at one point, and then his wardrobe room and the bathroom. So we go to the room where we go every day. We hang out and we just explore books and talk and live our lives. But Elvis this time is reading, as I'm doing his hair, he's reading these fan letters and he's laughing. And some of them are very funny and some are very risque. Some girl send him some pictures of herself, and you can imagine, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Elvis is reading a letter and he says, no, no, this poor old girl, man, she's got it all wrong. No way. And listen to this, Larry. So he starts to read me the letter. Elvis, I love you. You are the greatest star in the world. I know every song, every lyric. I know everything about you. You created rock and roll. I said, no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. No way. I did not create rock and roll. Let me tell you, Larry, how it really started way, way back in the old days, not too far from here in the Mississippi Delta. Because remember, Memphis, Graceland, was just maybe 4 or 5 miles from the Mississippi border.
Yeah.
So he says, way back then, Larry, when those poor old slaves, what they went through, we have no idea. And believe me, I've been told stories which those son of a bitch slave masters did to those people. They would whip them, whipped them till some of them bled to death. Right then, they would rape the women. They did things that were so disgusting. And these people had to get up before the sun came up, go into the fields and bend over and pick cotton or whatever they were doing in the scorching sun all day long. Some would just die right then and there. You know how they made it, how they got through? They sang. They sang to God. Just they were slaves like those Israelites in the Bible, man, at the pyramids. These people would sing from their guts, from their soul, and they would be crying to God and making up songs as they're going along in unison. And some of those songs are still with us today, and they're the best, they're the greatest. And their music spread into the white churches. It went down to New Orleans, to Honky Tonk, right here in Beale Street. It went over the years into Chicago, and the blues started in New York City. And as the years went by, it all came and evolved down to our time, as we know, as rhythm and blues. And I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and hand over their music to a white audience. I didn't create it, they did. That's Elvis. He
Yep.
said that. And let me tell you something. A lot of musicians know the truth. They know where music came from and how it happened.
Mhm.
And there are some that will tell you the same thing, but some of them might say, yeah, I came down and, it came to me and I put my spin on it and I brought it into an I and me, I, me. Elvis put
Mhm.
himself out of the picture.
Mhm.
It's not me, it's them. I'm lucky, man.
Mm.
I'm one lucky guy. So I wanted you guys to hear this and to know it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I'm actually
Yeah.
in graduate school for music, and so I'm writing a big paper about Memphis and Memphis vocalists. Obviously, I'm talking about Elvis, but I'm talking about a lot of other people too.
Mhm.
And so it's something that I think is such a huge misconception about Elvis, and his music, and just people not knowing that he never claimed, like early as 1957, he said, "I didn't write this music." Like
Right.
In Jet
Yep.
magazine in
There you go.
1957, they
Yep.
said he knows that this is Black music, and
That's
he
right.
said it at a
Mhm.
time when you weren't supposed to say that. They
That's
didn't
right.
want him to say that.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of interesting. I think it's a
Mhm.
huge misunderstanding. And,
Yeah.
to hear a
Mhm.
firsthand experience of him saying, like,
Yep.
no, I didn't make it. It's a huge misconception about him, I think.
I want to tell you, because it's in the book, as they say,
Mhm.
Mhm.
over the years, I see authors on TV and say, well, in my book and in my book, I feel like I'm selling. I'm not,
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
like that, but
Yeah.
the truth, August 16th,
Mhm.
cannot go into it now with you because I'll just cry and I don't
Yeah,
want, I'll make you cry and I don't want to do
I'm
that.
sure.
Mhm.
You can imagine what was going on at Graceland with his father and Lisa and all of us. And Vernon was standing with this man who was in a suit and tie. And Vernon called, Larry, come here. I want to introduce you to Robert Candell. He's the funeral director and he has Elvis's body at the mortuary. And I want you to go there, Larry. You got to take care of my boy. You got to make his hair look for the funeral because the funeral was going to be in 2 days. Elvis died on a Tuesday and he was buried Thursday. That was pretty quick. So the next morning, he said, "You be at the mortuary." And Robert says, "Be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, Larry, because we got to prepare Elvis and get him back to Graceland for a showing for the fans." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." And Charlie Hodge, you all know who Charlie is,
Mhm.
said, "Larry, you can't go there by yourself. I can't let you do it. You need moral support. You can't do this, but you take care of yourself. But I'll be there with you. I'll just sit there." I said, "Okay, you please do." So the next morning, 8 o'clock, drive up to this. It was on a whole city block, a couple of buildings, old stone buildings, and a link fence around the whole block with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people just clinging with their finger on fence. And they all had this look on their face. Oh, and I drove in. There's a bunch of people and Robert and Charlie and police officers. And I get out of my car and a police officer comes up to me, "Mr. Geller, follow me." And then Charlie was behind me with another officer. And as I'm walking, I was walking with my head down, but I was looking at all the faces. And all I heard was three helicopters, ABC, CBS, and NBC. There was no CNN though in those days. CNN came like 3 years later. Anyway, they were filming. The eyes of the world were on Memphis and Elvis. Walk into a building, a bunch of gentlemen were there, very respectful. No one said a word. They just nod their head, which was very, very nice. And I go to this long corridor stone. And all I could hear as I'm walking, because I know where I'm going, all I heard was the reverberation of our footsteps and my heart beating. It was weird. That's all I heard. And I got to the opening of where I know I don't want to go in, but I have to go in. And I walk in, and there's Elvis lying on the table, sleeping. I walk up a sheet up to here, and I'm looking at that face, that Adonis, and he looks so peaceful. I swear to you, it was like he was in bliss. And I knew what reality was. He was dead. He died, but he didn't die. His soul was in that room. I felt it. I felt it. You would feel it.
Mm.
And I looked at him, and I have to do my work now. The book goes into all this, but I'm looking at Elvis, and all of a sudden, in my brain, I'm seeing picture after picture like flip cards of when I first met him as a kid and him on stage in the movies and Girl Happy and Clambake and Spin Out and Graceland and going here and driving here and flying. Boop, 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 boop. And all of a sudden it stopped. And I remember something that happened years before in the 60s. And I stood there looking at Elvis, remembering that afternoon at Graceland, because every afternoon I'd walk upstairs the staircase to Elvis's bedroom, and we walk in and do his hair. Just our routine, you know. Only I walked into Elvis's bedroom, and he's sitting on the edge of the bed, and he's shaking his head back and forth, and he's waving a movie magazine. And you know, when you look at someone, a friend, their body language tells you where they're at. And I thought to myself, oh boy, what's up? You know, he said, Larry, you won't believe this, man. And he showed me the cover of the magazine. I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember. But it was a picture of Elvis from one of his movies in the 50s, one of his first movies. And it's a picture of Elvis crying like, ah. And it says, Elvis still in deep grief over his mother's death. He said, do you believe that, man? You know, look, I understand these people have a job to do, but some of these journalists, they go a little too far and they prey on things that they shouldn't do. It's not right. It's not fair. Look what it says. He starts to read it. Elvis is still in deep grief over his mother's death. Family and friends are very worried. They hear Elvis in the wee hours of the morning, pacing back and forth, crying out to her. One insider, it's a trick they use, they don't tell you who it is, they can't.
Right.
One insider claims he might want to join her. Larry, come on, man. Look, you don't get over your mother's death, your father, anyone you love, any friend, you don't get over it. But I came to terms with it. I came to terms with it. You know, you got to understand that. I want my fans to understand. All of a sudden, from where I came from poverty, from nothing, all I had was dreams. And overnight, I become Elvis Presley. Gold record after gold record, gold record. I'm on television, Milton Berle, Ed Sullivan, all these other shows. I'm touring the country, and all of a sudden I'm a movie star. I'm starring I'm a kid, and I'm starring in my own movie. Everything's happening. I'm making tons of money. I buy Graceland for my mom and my dad. I buy my mom furs, jewelry, pink Cadillac, whatever I can do for her. They slaved their lives away for me. everything is going my way, my whole future. And they brought the curtain down on me. That was it. It's all over.
Mhm.
They draft me in the army. Everything came to a
Mhm.
screeching halt. And I'll tell you right now, I did not have to go and serve like everyone else. They offered me a deal. They said to me, Elvis, you're Elvis Presley. You don't have to serve like everyone else. We'll send you around the world. You go to Paris, you go to Germany and England and Scotland, and you talk to the guys, maybe sing a song or two. Elvis said, no, no, not me. No way.
Mm.
I'm not special. I'm like every other person. I love my country and I'm going to serve it like every other man does. So I go into boot camp. And Larry, you know that picture of me? And I know everyone's probably seen it. That barber is buzzing my hair into a flat top. And I'm have this big silly ass grin on my face. Larry, I was dying inside. My hair, man. They took my hair, everything. They took my hair.
Mhm.
And then it happened. Then it happened. Then it really happened. My mom died on me. All of a sudden, my mom, the light of my life. She was the only person I could really go to no matter what. She was my mom. She died, Larry. My career, my mom, everything. I even thought, I'll tell you the truth, when I got out of the army a couple of years later, people would say, hey, whatever happened to the guy with that funny name? You know, Arvis Pretzel guy. Remember him? I wasn't sure,
Mhm.
man. I wasn't sure. And then they shipped my ass off around the world to Germany.
Mm.
Man, it'd be nice. I go to bed and I'm thinking, oh God, why? Are you there? Are you there? I always believe in God, but I did have questions. I did have doubts. I did. And I used to remember, I always used to remember. It's funny. I was a little boy, man. I always used to go to my mom and say, Mom, tell me about my brother. Tell me about Jesse Guerin. Tell me again. And she'd tell me the same story every time. She'd say, honey,
Mhm.
God had a plan for your brother, Jesse, and he took him back home. There's a home that all of us are going to go to someday. And someday daddy's going to go back home. And someday I'll go back home too. And honey, someday way, way in the future, after you grow up, someday you'll go home. And Elvis looks at me. He says, Larry, that's exactly what I believe right there. We're all going home
Mhm.
someday. And then I snapped to and I realized I better take care of Elvis's hair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm going to leave that there. The next day was the funeral. Oh my God. Everyone left after the ceremony except for Vernon and Charlie and GK, George Klein, and all the guys who worked for Elvis in the 60s. All of them are standing there. I'm standing right next to Vernon. And Joe Esposito took Elvis's TCB ring off and handed it to Mr. Presley, put it in his pocket. And Robert Candela is standing there and he's saying, listen, we're on a schedule and we have to close this up now. And I'm thinking, this is it. No one will ever see Elvis again. And his father screamed out, I'll be with you soon, son. I'll be with you soon. And the lid is coming down. How do I explain this? The lid's coming down. And Elvis, he's right here. This is eternity now, right? I'm waiting for Vernon to fall on him. I don't know. To do something physically, but I can see he wasn't. And I made a decision, a very quick decision. I'm gonna be the last person to touch Elvis. I put my hand in. The lid came down. I took my hand out and the lid came down. When I put my hand on him, I said something silently. I told him I loved him and something else. And so you guys, people ask me
Mhm.
forever, for 50 years now, so what was the guy like? What kind of guy was Elvis? I say, you really want to know? I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you how to really know what kind of a guy he was. You sit down and you put on Elvis's music and you be still and just listen. Listen to his voice. Listen to what he's telling you and what he's singing about. I don't care if you're in pain physically, you had an operation, you have a cut, or your boyfriend left you, or you got terrible problems. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Listen to his music. And I promise you, there'll be some form of healing. He'll connect with you, everyone in their own way. And that's what happens. Just listen to Elvis sing. And something happens. You can't put your finger on it. You can't, it's indefinable, but you're not supposed to define it. That's what true spirituality is about. It's about something that's beyond us. It's like the mystery of existence is beautiful. And that's what the candlelight vigil, there's no other person on planet Earth that has a candlelight vigil. And when you go there and you see tens of thousands of people and everyone's holding a candle and walking single file, and we hear Elvis singing, it's not because he was a movie star. It's not because he was a singer. It was not because he was a philanthropist or anything else. He had a destiny. He came here for a reason and is never going to be defined in words, only through your experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you, God, for allowing me to be with you.
Of course.
thank
Thank you so
you.
much for joining us. We're, it's always so incredible. I think when we started this podcast, we were just talking about the vigil. We released it on the day of the vigil in 2024.
We did, yeah.
And, we each came to Elvis in our own way. And Megan's been a fan longer than me. I came through the newer movie. And I just think to myself, I never would have imagined that I would be able to speak with people who knew Elvis, who knew him deeply, who knew him in different capacities. We've had the honor of speaking to people who knew him
Well,
in
now
different
it,
ways.
now it's happened.
Yeah.
And Tessa and Megan, I appreciate you guys. And now we're friends. You need anything, you let me know. Okay?
We will. We will.
Absolutely.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
you guys.
Yeah,
All
thank you
right.
so much.
Thank
Be well.
you.
Many blessings.
That's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Chronicles of the King podcast.
If you love what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps bring the King's story to life.
You can follow us on social media at the Chronicles of the King for updates, upcoming series, and more. We'd love to hear your input and any of your favorite Elvis moments.
Until next time, keep rocking and rolling, and we'll be back soon with more stories from Elvis's extraordinary life.
With TLC, we'll see you on the next episode of the Chronicles of the King.